Guys, chess endgames are important and chess endgames are difficult, and for that reason I have put together an over 28-hour course on mastering chess endgames, really purposed to get you into the top 1% of endgame players. We start out with the basics, with those fundamentals, and we build into more complicated concepts that can really help you win more games and just have a better understanding of chess overall. If you're interested in my 30% off discount code for that course, or really any of my courses on Gumroad, you can go down in the description below, go down the pinned comment, plug in the discount code CHESS25, and you will receive 30% off on your purchase. Hope you guys enjoy it, and I'll see you over in the main video. Some of you watching this have already seen the first 3 parts of my series on how to play the Pterodactyl Defense on the theoretical level. Some of you may not even know what the heck the Pterodactyl Defense is. If you don't, I believe that this is a very underrated option for black that deserves a lot more attention. And if you're looking at games played at the Master, Grandmaster level, black wins more often than white. This chess opening option for black gives us a winning percentage as the black side against white's move of d4, c4, and knight c3. And this is a good option for those of you that play the Hippopotamus Defense. I'm considering using this in my tournament play. A lot of players are, that I'm going up against now are prepping for my Hippo, and I'm looking for curveball options to really take them out of their theory once they've prepped for my Hippo. And the Pterodactyl starts out with this move of pawn to c5. Now, in the first 3 parts of the series, we've covered a variety of different moves, including starting off with d takes c5. Right, and against this move here, I'm recommending capturing on c3. You are down a pawn, but white has triple isolated pawns here, and the engine likes black's chances. So that's something that you can go for today. In part 4, we're going to be taking a look at this move of pawn to d5, and this is the engine move. This is the most common move that we see at all levels of play when you're, on lead chess, all levels, all time controls, all time. When you're looking at the professional level, you see this the most often. So you got to be prepared for d5. You got to. And my recommendation here is to take on c3. Now, yes, you can play d6. You can. Nothing wrong with that per se. But I like taking on c3, right? If we're going to play the Pterodactyl, we might as well go all the way with it. And here in this video, I'm going to be covering the move of pawn to e5. This is my preference right now. Now, there is this move of pawn to f5 on the Beef Eater variation, and I'll leave a link to that in the description below, as well as the rest of the Pterodactyl Defense theoretical videos that I just mentioned. But pawn to f5, this is the Beef Eater. Okay, and this actually has a really good winning percentage. The engine doesn't like it as much due to this move of pawn to e4, white really going after f5 and then playing pawn to f3. And I will say that this is a difficult position for black to play without knowing the theory, but it is playable if you know what you're doing. All that said, right now I'm not in love with the Beef Eater variation. I'm a much bigger fan of this move of pawn to e5, and I'm going to be showing you the most common line that we see in online chess from white. So we're just going to start out with that, and then we'll work our way backwards. Okay, I want to cover what's the most important line first, and then work towards the less played variation. So e4 here is the most common move that we see. Okay, not taking, which is the second most common, which we'll look at, but pawn to e4. Against that, we're able to play pawn to d6, locking things up. And notice again, yes, it's true. We don't have a dark squared bishop. At the same time, we got rid of this dark squared bishop. That would have been bad on g7. This bishop wouldn't be doing much. This bishop on c8, this bishop is greatly placed. It's a light square bishop with dark square pawns surrounding it. On top of that, white's pawn structure is weak, particularly this pawn on c4. This pawn on c4, you could even throw this pawn on c3 in there. White's pawn structure on the queen side is just not doing very well. And in terms of pawn breaks, what does white have here? I mean, white has the move of pawn to f4 if they want to play that, which we'll also be taking a look at. But this pawn, I mean, you can push it. I don't really know what that does. Neither of these guys can push. d5 can't move, e4 can't move. And sure, you might be saying the same thing for black. I totally get that. But what I'm trying to point out here is that there is a locked up pawn structure, and white's pawns are weaker. Our c-pawn here is defended by a pawn. Put a bishop, a queen, a knight, as many attackers as you want on it. we have a pawn defending it. So whenever you capture and we capture back, we're going up material. White, on the other hand, has this pawn on c4 that is extremely weak, and there's no pawn that defends it, and there's no pawn that ever can. Unless, of course, white somehow gets a capture on b3, which I don't see happening. Now, the most common move that we see is bishop to d3. Really good move. We now play knight to d7. Notice we're eyeing up that square of e5, just in case we see something like f4. We want to have support for e5, number one. We also want to be able to throw our knight into e5 at some point, putting pressure on the bishop as well as this pawn on c4. And, okay, white here often plays the move of knight to e2. Here, I'm recommending the move of queen to e7, and then playing h5 and expanding with h4. And it's up until this point that I recommend you memorize, okay? Up until this point here. So let's go back to the start. All right, against d4, we have r1 and 2. Again, this is a good option for those of you that play the Hippopotamus Defense. Maybe you don't like the hippo against this setup. Maybe you just want to have a curveball option. Maybe you're looking into other modern defense theoretical ideas. But this move here, guys, of c5 is engine approved, and it performs well at the professional level. So if you really put the time in, if you watch through this video multiple times and really memorize the lines, really get those lines down. By the way, all PGNs, all future PGNs that I have available will be posted on the Patreon page. So that's something to keep an eye out for. Those of you that are Patreon supporters, appreciate you guys. But this move is c5. We have d5 here, right? We have d5. That's the most common move that we see. Whether you're taking or pushing, in either case, I recommend taking on c3. And in this case, we could play the beef eater, but I like the move of pawn to e5. Right, pawn to e5, locking things up with d6, tucking the knight, playing queen e7, calm, cool, collected chess. And here with castling kingside going 1 and 2. Okay, now looking at this position here, there's only so many games, right? There's not a huge sample size in this position in online chess, even though this is the most common, line that white has. Eventually, it's going to whittle down. The most common move that we see technically is the move of pawn to f5. I do want to say if h3, which is, by the way, a much better move than f5, we can take on f4. We can take. And if you take on f4 with your rook, your knight, or your bishop, we have g5, and we're actually launching a kingside attack. Very surprising, right? One might not expect that, but notice we have this advanced pawn. We have a bishop on c8 that's very active. There's no pawns in its way, and e5 is opening up, and the g-pawn has unlimited access. So that's the thing. If white plays the move of pawn to f4, yes, they got rid of our central pawn, but now this king has a little bit less protection, and we're able to really start going after that king. So, for example, if we see the move bishop takes f4, we have g5. If the bishop moves, g4 again. Right, keep pushing. I mean, we're putting pressure on h3. Knight e5 is an idea that we're definitely looking at here. And if you take on g4, okay, we play knight e5. We're double attacking the pawn. Let's say white pushes it here, which is their best move. We can play bishop g4, and I'm just showing off some sample moves here. I mean, let's say we see something like queen d2, h3. Keep attacking here. Keep attacking. White doesn't want to take. They don't want their position to open up here. And if they try to keep it all locked up, the problem for them is that we have bishop f3. We're now threatening this idea of h2 with check going up against that king. And, I mean, that pawn's just cruising. I mean, case closed. That pawn is doing a great job for us on the king side. So with e takes f4, turns out taking with the rook, taking with the bishop, neither one of those is the best option for white. The only move that gives white a close to even position, which even then you could argue black's definitely better, is knight takes f4. And here we're still playing g5. Now the reason the knight is better is because white has this move of knight h5, and you do got to be careful here. Now if we do play the move knight to e5, most players aren't going to find this move. Okay, but if they do, white is winning. Knight f6 with check. With check. Hey, if we move our king, bishop takes g5, this is disastrous for us. If we capture the knight, bishop takes g5. And okay, we're up a piece for a pawn, but who cares? There's a bishop and a rook both going after our knight. If we defend it, white could just take on f6 and then play queen f3. And I mean, we're in major trouble here. So that said, with knight h5. Here the engine likes the move of king to d8. King to d8. Just going, yeah, I'm not going to get checked. And I'm going to keep an eye on f6 just for a moment. And for rook b1, for example, king c7. And this is a common idea that we see in the pterodactyl. Again, cannot move, cannot move, cannot move. It can move technically, but why? This king is very safe on the queen side of the board, and we're able to attack aggressively on the king side towards white's king. Okay, so keep that idea in mind. Now, again, h3 there is the best move white has. White just has to find knight takes f4 and knight h5, which is difficult. Very hard to find that. But okay, let's say we see the move f5. We're going to take. And look, if you take with the pawn, all right, let's develop the undeveloped knight, right? I mean, if we can get one of our knights to f6, let's bring out the one that hasn't moved yet. That makes sense. Notice, by the way, queen c2, trying to put some more pressure on e4. That doesn't work. Pawn to e4, the bishop's trapped. Notice, by the way, as well, the moment white takes here, we have a passed pawn. Guys, it's move 12. We have a passed pawn as black. And it's protected. But if the rook takes, be careful here, okay? You don't want to develop the undeveloped knight because white has bishop g5. And yikes, okay? Not fun. You don't want to get pinned there with a rook also looking at the knight. So be careful about that. Here in that case, you want to play knight df6. Hey, play bishop g5 all you want now. We're attacking your rook. And if you run with the rook, for example, rook to f1, I kind of like this idea of queen to f8. Okay, queen to f8 is a good idea. Really looking to bring this queen to g7. h3 there was also very playable for black. But I mean, yeah, queen f8, queen g7. Here, if queen d2, for example, rook h5. We're adding more and more pressure onto the king side. What does white have here? What are they playing for? This bishop is atrocious. This knight can barely move. The only square that knight can move where it doesn't get captured is c1. And I'm feeling good about our activity. We could even start looking towards castling queenside at some point and getting this rook involved over on g8. So a lot of play here, a lot of possibilities in terms of putting pressure on the white side. Okay, a lot of good stuff there. Now returning to this position of knight d7, right? Returning to that position there. What could we do here, right? As white, what else could we see? I mean, we covered the move of knight e2, but quite a few players have tried this move f4. But you got to realize when white plays f4, we already have our knight on d7. We already have that pawn protected, and we can actually look to protect it more with this move of queen f6. We're attacking the pawn twice now. We're looking towards this pawn on c3, and yeah, I mean, if you want to take our knight captures back, I mean, that's a beautiful knight, beautiful, right in the center of the board. I mean, this is bad for white. White does not want this. Okay, this is not what white was envisioning with all this pressure on c4, by the way. And if knight e2, which is their best move, okay, queen h4, check. Let's provoke a pawn push or a king move. Either one is not helpful to white at all. And then we run back with our queen. We run back. I mean, you want a castle? Hey, let's think about h5 again. Start pushing that king side up. If you want to take, again, the knight captures back at bishop f4, knight f6 as an example, right? And our queen is ready to capture back. I don't like when our pawn captures back because then white has a protected pass pawn. So make sure in the pterodactyl, I mean the hippo as well, it can be applied to a lot of systems. If you have this kind of structure, you got to be careful to keep this pawn on d6. You don't want white getting that passed pawn. That's not fun at all. So make sure that you have a protector there. Thankfully for us, we do. And what's the threat here? Well, let's just say white plays a4 or something, which is, I mean, even more weakening to their pawn structure. But nonetheless, what do we have here? Knight takes d3. Why are we giving up our good knight for their bad bishop? Because we capture off the pawn on e4. You don't have time to take on d6 because the queen would drop. And if you take our queen, the knight protects d6. We're up a pawn. And again, just take a look at the pawn structure. White's pawn structure deserves a moment of silence, guys. This is bad. Okay, this is not good. Now, with the move of d6, right? Going back to this spot. Okay, again, how did we get here? We have d4, right? Bishop g7, and then c5. All right, white could take or push. In either case, we're going to take on c3, play e5, and then go with d6. And we covered the move of bishop d3. But let's look at this move f4. Okay, this is also a common option that you can see. And there's different ways of playing this out. I mean, one of them is going with this move of queen to f6. Right, that's one option. Knight d7 here. This is okay. Right, this is okay. What I would say is that white just kind of keeps adding more pressure onto that pawn. They don't have to take, and then it's like, okay, we play queen e7, for example, bishop e2. And notice, by the way, taking on f4 and then going, oh, hey, I'm going to take on e4. That's a terrible idea because, again, the pawn on d6, in this case, it didn't capture, but it did get captured. And now white does have this passed pawn on the d file. So that's obviously not good for black at all. And yeah, I mean, we could go with e takes f4, right? That's an option. And if the bishop captures back, throw in a check. Right? Now, I don't care if you're playing bishop g3 or g3. In either case, we're going to e7. The bishop drops, queen e7. g3, queen e7. The bishop develops, knight f6. Queen e2, let's develop our other knight. And we're really looking to utilize and go after that e5 spot. If castling, we can castle kingside as well. Centralize our knight. Take all day. That's totally fine. No matter how many times you take, we're going to be able to capture back with a piece, not our pawn. And here we're threatening c3, g3, and h3. So again, guys, with the move of pawn to f4 against d6, white here playing very aggressively. You can take on f4, right? You can totally take. That's a really good move. You could also go with the move of queen f6. This is a good option as well. Queen f6, you're doubling up against that pawn. Now, if white takes, we're not going to take on e5 with the queen, but we're instead going to throw in a check on h4, going after the king and attacking e4. And notice, by the way, g3 there would be a terrible move because we're going to take on e4 and say thanks for the rook on h1. So the best thing that white could do here is simply make a run for it with king to d2. We're able to capture off that pawn on e4 now. And white takes on d6. White is up material. That said, I mean, their king is on d2. And, I mean, this is just a wild position. Sure, you could try to trade off queens. The engine's telling me knight to f6. And if white decides to trade, okay, knight takes e4. Going after the king. Looking at f2. Looking at c3. Looking at d6. White does have that protected passed pawn, but we have a great advantage in development here, which really makes the difference and gives us that advantage. Now, with d6, okay, I also want to take a quick look at this move of knight to f3. If we see this, the engine likes the approach of h6. White has a knight and a bishop both looking at g5. Let's just make it so white can't even think about going there again. Play h6, play f5. If white wants to take, I talk about this all the time in my Hippopotamus Defense videos. If white takes on f5, look to the sides of the pawn. Is there a black pawn there? Yeah? Okay, take with the pawn. Pawns side by side are extremely dangerous, in this case wiping out half of the fourth rank. And we can really play either one of these whenever we want to. White can't force us to do either one, and we can develop queen f6, knight e7, you name it. We have a beautiful game ahead of us. And if white here goes, hey, I'm going to castle kingside, f4. I love this idea. As black pushing up this pawn to f4, this pawn is now useless. And if given the chance, we're looking at g5, the next move, continuing to expand. I get it. We don't have any pieces developed, but I mean, this is a closed position right now. And the engine actually has white taking on f4 and then playing e5. I mean, that's crazy, but that's what the engine has. Still has black is better there, but I mean, let's just say white plays some quiet little move. We play g5. Guys, I know we don't have any pieces developed, but who cares? The board is completely locked up, and we're going to have plenty of time to develop and really add more and more pressure onto that king side. Okay, so yeah, I mean, this is just such a fun game for us. Such a great game overall coming out of the Pterodactyl. Returning to this move of e5, right? We covered e4, very common move, in which case we play the move of d6. But what happens if white takes on e6? Well, in this case, I think a lot of players here might, be tempted to take towards the center, but the best thing we can do is actually take with our d pawn and offer a trade of queens. Notice, by the way, when white takes here, they have an isolated pawn on a2, which they already have, but now they have doubled isolated pawns on the c file, and the best thing white can do is just trade off queens. Right? Trade off queens, and white, from this point, has to be careful. I mean, look, if you throw in a check, we just block. You throw in another check? Okay, king c7. You throw in another check? We just block. We're totally fine here, right? And if anything, I mean, this pawn on c4 is calling for us to attack it. There's a variety of ways that we can do this as the game goes on, including the move of bishop to e6. But white here just has a terrible position to work through. And if white goes, hey, I'm not going to trade off queens, okay, we develop. Knight c6, and we're better. I mean, we could play queen to c7. Let's say we see g3. I just wanted to mention this move because sometimes white could go for this kind of long diagonal idea. We don't want to just fianchetto our bishop and match that energy right now because of bishop f4. And now we got to run away. Because if we play e5, white takes. And if we capture back, which is our best move, white takes. And if we capture back, which is our best move, white takes. We're down a pawn. And white's bishop is incredible. I mean, not for us, but for white. So we don't want that. Okay. If you see this kind of position, f6. Great move. f6. Patient here. Ready to respond to bishop f4 with e5. And sure, white could take. White could do that all day long. Now, hey, we're not taking with the queen because then we lose both our knight and our rook. Let's just lose our rook. We're now down 1 point in material, just like before. But notice, it's not just, oh, we're just down a pawn. No, it's we have a position in which case our opponent has a rook and 2 pawns. We, in turn, have 2 minor pieces. Right? Now, as we know, 2 minor pieces is much better than a rook. 2 minor pieces is nearly always better than a rook and a pawn. A rook and 2 pawns versus a knight and bishop, 2 knights, 2 bishops, that gets a little bit dicey. But here, because of white's terrible pawn structure and our activity here, our centralized knights, our queen and our bishop both looking towards the king side, we're simply better. I mean, if you play bishop d5 trying to make it so we don't castle, okay, we take. And this might seem a little bit scary. This is a passed pawn now, but guys, we have great activity here. We got minor pieces all over the place that can get stuff done. White has 2 rooks in the corners. And sure, you can castle, for example, bishop h3. You want to run? Okay, knight g4. Attacking this guy. Attacking it. You wanna push it to f3? Okay, knight e3. The rook's gonna drop. I mean, white here is just in major trouble. This is a great game for us. So all that said, right, you play the Pterodactyl Defense, you play c5. If they push that pawn, you take the knight, you play e5, taking on e6 there for white. That's just a bad idea. Okay, you take back with the d pawn, and you're more than ready to go into an endgame when white has such terrible pawn structure. They do have the bishop pair there, but I do like black's chances. And if the queen runs after taking, then we know that we simply have a big advantage, a nice edge as black. Now, if white ends up pushing to d6, now this isn't a super common move, but I do think it should be covered because it is scary. I mean, in one sense, when you're looking at this, you look at white's pawn structure and you might be thinking, gosh, this is horrible. I mean, this is not pretty, like, at all. But yeah, you also might be looking at black's pawn structure like, this is kind of ugly too. It's not like we have any doubled pawns, not like we have an isolated pawn, but I mean, we got a pawn on c5 and e5, which begs white to try to get something onto the d5 outpost. And on top of that, there's a pawn all the way down on d6, so this guy's stuck. We were going to play d6. We were going to play knight d7. We can't do that now. So what do we do here? Well, if you can't play d6, play b6. And you really want to pay close attention to pawn structure. Chess in general comes down to pawns, but this position, when it's closed, when it's locked up, especially in this kind of fashion where you got, I mean, weaknesses like d6 and c4, you really want to keep an eye on pawns and look to add more and more pressure as time goes on. And there's a variety of ways to do that. There's no way to win this pawn right away. But what we're going to try to do here is we're going to try to really just slowly amp up the pressure and see if we can make something happen here. Now, if we see something like knight f3, that's an inaccuracy. Queen f6. Good move. I mean, e4 is an idea now. Like if it's our move right now, e4, kicking the knight, looking at c3, good stuff. Fun stuff there, right? You decide to attack our queen. Okay, queen e6, putting pressure on c4. You kind of just kicked our queen into a very active spot where it's putting pressure on both the weak pawns that white has. Let's say white plays e4. Good move there. What can we do? Bishop e7, right? Putting pressure on e4. If f3, defending the pawn with a pawn, we could play queen f6. But why not, if we can, throw in a check first and then play queen f6. Let's provoke pawn pushes. The more pawns white pushes here, the weaker their pawn structure is going to be, and it's already pretty weak. If bishop g2, I'm just showing some sample moves here. I mean, this is a playable looking move. How could black respond here? Queen e6. There we go. Putting pressure on c4 and d6. If we see queen d3, how do we add more pressure? Bishop a6. Remember, I talk about this a lot in my Hippo videos. If the bishop's fianchettoed, it's not stuck there forever. You can go to c8, you can go to a6, you can go to h6 or f8, depending on the position. Let's say white tries to hang on to that guy. How do we add more pressure? By playing knight c6, looking towards knight a5. Now, okay, if knight h3, I don't really want this to happen, so let's play h6. Let's just put a stop to that idea. I mean, there's really not much white can do here. They can try to do certain things, but I mean, this is a closed position. They are pretty limited. If bishop e3, what do we do now? Okay, knight a5. And we're putting a lot of pressure on this pawn. I don't know if any of you have heard of Roman Dinchiashvili, but he had back in the day when DVDs were a thing, he had a series on the Nimzo Indian. I played the Nimzo Indian for a long time, and he has I think it's against the Samish or something, but yeah, anyways, he has a line where this exact idea is covered. Bishop a6, locking in the c4 pawn, and then bringing the knight to a5. And here, I mean, we have such great pressure on that pawn, and once that pawn drops, there's a very good chance d6 is going to fall as well. Okay, very good chance there. Yeah, I mean, this is a position for us that is winning in all senses, really. Keep in mind as well, like in other positions, you might be able to think about knight b7 putting pressure on d6. You eventually might be able to think about knight e8 putting pressure on d6. You might be able to rook lift putting pressure on d6. This pawn can't be protected by a pawn. So what I would say is develop your pieces, put pressure on the extended d6 pawn, and go from there. But again, guys, with the pterodactyl, right, in conclusion, we're playing bishop g7, c5. If d5, start out by memorizing this line. We're going to take on c3, play e5 there, and if e4, lock things up, knight d7, queen e7, and then we can start hurling down our h-pawn, and we have a really fun game. Let me know what you thought of this video. Remember, if this is the first time that you've seen one of my videos on the theory behind the pterodactyl, I do have links in the description below covering more theory that is good to know for those of you that are, you know, big pterodactyl people. And yeah, just a quick reminder that there is that 30% off discount code good through the month of September. That discount code is chess25, good for all courses, including my over 28-hour Endgames course, meant to get you into the top 1% of players. I appreciate you guys a ton, and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace. I wanted to finish this video out by giving a big thanks to Walter, Steve, Rob, that's a lot of Robs, Ray, Roger, and the rest of my Patreon community. I appreciate you guys a ton. If you guys haven't checked out the Patreon before, there are some exclusive benefits that you gain by becoming a member, and I look forward to seeing y'all in the next video. Peace.